Hello, welcome back to my polytunnel in my garden. In this video we're going to be looking at about 12 different ways you can save money, save time and basically improve your seed sowing techniques and so on. These are sort of hacks really, things that I've picked up over time, a few things I've seen on the internet, but yeah, hopefully they'll prove useful. I hope you can join me in this one, in this crazy March with so much to do. Okay, let's get stuck in. Okay, the first seed hack is how to help large dried seeds to germinate quicker, but also to prevent them from rotting off in the compost when you sow them. So the last couple of years, what I've been doing is I've been soaking my seeds in water overnight for about 12 to 14 hours beforehand. Makes the seeds all plump up, and then these become perfect for sowing into the compost. And I actually do the same now for my sweet peas, and you can, I don't know if the camera picks it up, but they all swell up and the seed casings start to split. They're more likely to germinate and actually grow into young plants than they would if they weren't. So that's the first hack. Big seeds, soak them overnight, and that'll really help with both your germination and also prevent rotting off. Now this next seed hack, it leads on nicely from the last one, and this is another way of helping large big seeds germinate more successfully. And I saw this actually on the web and haven't tried it before, but I thought I'd show you to see what you think. So do let me know in the comments below what you think, whether you've tried this before. Well, these are the Calypso beans that I grew last year. They were lovely little plants. They're, well, about 18 inches tall or so, with great big pods on them. And they produce these lovely sort of bicoloured beans. These are the Oscar dwarf broad beans, and these are the runner bean seeds, which if you're new to obviously seed sowing, you might not recognise all of these, but if you're experienced, obviously you'll know all of these. But anyway, the hack is using sandpaper, and because these seeds are so big, what people have said is that quite often you'll get a better germination if the surface of the seed has been roughed up. I've always had pretty good germination with these sorts of beans, but if you've struggled, yeah, maybe give this a go. Rub it between some sandpaper, roughen up the skin, and then plant them and see how you get on. So let me know about that hack. I'd be really interested to know what you think. Right, this next hack is really the opposite end of the spectrum of the seed scale, and this is for seeds which are really, really tiny. I know, like carrot seeds and like poppy seeds, for example. I've got some poppy seeds here, some old ones, and they're minuscule. And there are two ways you can sort of do this to help you sow these seeds more evenly. The first one is with sand, but there's also another really interesting way of doing it, which I want to show you, which involves, yeah, something a bit different. I'll show you. Right, for this seed hack, basically I want you to imagine that this is your lovely garden bed or your allotment bed, and basically you want to sow some dark seeds onto what is in effect some really dark compost, so it's very hard to see where they land. So if you're obviously going to make a little seed drill down the middle of the compost there, yeah, if I were to sprinkle seeds in there, I wouldn't know if I had a clump there, one or two there, and that's quite often what happens. So with this hack, we've got a special little trick here for you, and it is using toilet paper. And so the idea with this is that if you put this into your seed drill, you can put a little bit of compost on either end to hold it in place. And then if you get your seeds, and these are poppy seeds, if you open that up and sprinkle them in to my hand, you'll see that they're like fine dust. They're just like dust. And if I were to sprinkle that onto the soil or compost, I wouldn't really know where I'd put them. But if you just use sort of toilet paper like this and you sprinkle them, I don't know if the camera can pick it up, I can quite easily see where the seeds are. And I've got this even sort of sprinkling all the way along on the toilet paper. And then what you do is if you get some water, a little sprayer, and basically just wet the surface like that, it'll just hold them in place. But this way you can see where your seeds are. So let me know what you think of that. I saw that online and I thought that was quite ingenious, quite a good way of doing it. In fact, I suppose you could spray it first, in fact. Anyway, let me know what you think about this seed sowing hack. Right, this next seed sowing hack is something I've been desperate to try for ages, actually. And actually, I'll tell you a little story. Many moons ago, when I went to art college, that was where I went to do my degree. I came up with this project because I was into gardening then, and I came up with this project for sandwiching seeds between two bits of tissue paper, because I thought there was a real problem with sowing seeds at equal spacing, and this was way before tape was on the market. But since then, seed tapes have become really popular, and I'll show you some that I sowed last year and have done really well for me. Now this is moss scroll, and this was sown as a seed tape all the way along the front of this bed in the polytunnel, and it's done so well. It's so lush. So what I want to do is try and recreate my own seed tape, and so I've decided, yeah, as I say, to give it a go. And all those years ago when I came up with this product, see if we can actually make it work. As you can see, this is the seed tape if you're not familiar with them, and I think you can possibly make out the little dark specks in there, and they are the parsley seeds. So in order to replicate this, this is what I've seen online. It's a bit like a Blue Peter thing here, isn't it? You need some, again, back to the old faithful, the toilet loo paper, and I've basically cut it in half down the middle to make these strips. And then you need some ordinary flour. This is just white plain flour, and you want to make like a paste. And so to do that, what I've seen is you use equal amounts of flour to water, and you mix it up so that you get sort of like a fairly gloopy sort of paste. And then what you want to do is you make a little dollop of this along the length of the toilet paper, basically to where you're going to put your seeds. So right, let's get a bit closer and see how we do that. Right, I don't know if you can make out, but I've actually added a little bit more paste to each one of those dollops, and also done this row. Now, I don't know if you know, but parsnip grows best when it's fresh. So if you can make sure that you get fresh seed every year, you're more likely to get better germination. So what I'm trying to do is to get 2 seeds, and I'm going to place 2 seeds on the actual paste. And the good thing about this is, let me just put these back in here. I'm not going to do all of them. I will do in a minute. I'll finish them off in a minute. But what you can do is when you've done this and you've put seeds on all of them, you can fold the tissue paper over, the toilet paper over, and sandwich them together, and the actual paste will help them stick together. And then when they've dried, you can roll them up and write the name on them of what they are. So these would obviously be F1 Warrior Parsnip. So that's how I'm doing these. Right, I shall just get on and finish them, and then we'll get on with the next hack. Well, that's the first one done there, looking good. Obviously we'll need to dry out, so all I need to do now is just fold this one over on itself too, and it sticks really easy actually. And I think the other good thing about making this paste is obviously it's all environment friendly, and it'll just break down in the soil. You know, when this gets wet, this tissue toilet paper will just disintegrate really easily, and the seeds will just root down through it and be absolutely no problems whatsoever. So let me know what you think about that hack. I think that's going to be quite successful actually. I quite enjoyed doing that, and it took me right back to my student days. I wonder if I was the first person to do a seed tape. Anyway, right, let's get on with the next one. Right, let's get on and sow some seed, shall we? So in this hack, it's a special hack for all those people who love growing peas, but you don't want to do lots and lots of different cells and plant them all out individually because it's quite time consuming. But also you don't want to necessarily put them peas straight into the ground outside, because the mice come along and grab them up and eat them up, or pigeons get in there and pull them out when they're very young, or nip the tops off, that sort of thing. So you want more established plants, but you want to do it quickly. So let me just show you this little seed sowing hack, because if you haven't done it before, I think you should try it. I think you'll really love it. So as I alluded to right at the very beginning of the video, we can use cut up bits of gutters to sow our peas into. Now some people sow in really long gutters, but I find them quite unwieldy, and I've got to get these peas to the allotment, or one of the allotments, so I've got to get them in the car. So what I like to do is cut them to the length of one of these big seed trays. So I basically just cut the gutters off to the length of the seed tray. You can fit 3 in side by side of this sort of simple standard size guttering, and then fill it full of compost. And then if you get your peas, so I've drained the water out, and these are the ones I'd soaked. And a really good way of doing your peas in guttering is to stagger them. So rather than doing just one line down the middle, as you wouldn't get so many, if you do this sort of W, this sort of staggered effect, I'm just making a little hole so you can see how they go in. And then that means you get far more peas per length of gutter than you would if you just did a single row. And obviously with three gutters worth here, you can get an awful lot of peas in. And the good thing about doing it this way is that when you take them up to the allotment, you can obviously just grab your gutter and you can slide the peas out of the end of the gutter into a little trench that you've sort of made in the soil and the compost. So that's a really good way of doing this. So all I would do now is get a pea, and I just drop one pea into each of these holes. And then once I've done the whole tray, I would basically cover them over and then just water them in, and then I would leave them. And I wouldn't water them too much, because basically, as I said earlier, if you water them a lot, basically they can rot. But what you want them to do now is take in the moisture that they have absorbed from when I was soaking them, and then grow away from that. So basically just a very light sprinkling of water.
From the Queen of LA, I wrote a song when I had nothing to say, like this one. This one. Follow the river to the edge of the sea. I kissed the water and it made me complete, like this one. This one.
Right, that's that seed sowing hack done. How to sow peas in gutters. Really is good actually. It's a really good way of easily planting them out, but also making sure that you can put them out slightly more mature and not lose peas to pests. Right, obviously don't forget to label them. Just a Hearst green shaft, put that in there, and the date that you planted them out. And then yeah, that's a good little hack if you haven't tried it before. Okay, let's get on the next one. Let's go and have a look at those potatoes, shall we? So this next hack really isn't about seeds. It's sort of a couple of things really. It's one about potatoes and how we can get an earlier crop, and potentially how I suppose we can save these which have sent out huge shoots. Another one is how to rejuvenate your compost or your soil that you had in pots and things last year, because you don't want to just chuck it on the composter. Sometimes you might want to reuse it, so we can rejuvenate it using sort of adding fresh compost to other stuff from the garden. So the first things first, these are my first early seed potatoes. These are Arran Pilot. As I said earlier, I left them in the office and they got too hot and dark and so on, and they basically sent up all these huge stems. Now quite often people advise that you snap them off or just get rid of them, but actually these potatoes are still really good, I think, and really healthy. So I've prepared 8 sort of Arran Pilot potatoes there. They're all ready to go, but this is what I wanted to show you. Now I grow in these big 45-litre tubs every year. The soil has been in for quite a while now, quite exhausted I think it is, and in fact I knocked this one out in, and this is what it came out like. Great big sort of really solid soil. It's not much good. This is was a topsoil that I got when I set up these beds, so it's quite old and it needs rejuvenating. So I've knocked it out into this large trug and broken up a lot of it, so it's very fine sort of soil, as you can see, but I don't know the amount of food and so on and nutrients that it's got in it. So what I want to do is put in some of this. Now this is compost from the allotment, and this is basically what we do is we use those sort of Dalek bins and we put in all our food waste compost. Everything, you know, the cutting of leaves and things that we don't want, eggs, eggshells, old tea bags, that sort of stuff, fruit peelings, and that goes and breaks down into this beautiful, beautiful compost. And now you can use this to rejuvenate this soil and then put it back into this sort of tub. So that's what I'm going to do. So basically I'm going to take this trug and tip in a little bit of this soil into the bottom. And then I'm going to add about the same amount again of this lovely compost that I've got here. So I'm just going to tip that in. We get in there with a trowel. We just give that a good mix up together, and it'll rejuvenate that old soil. You don't have to throw away old, you know, soil that you've used, or even grow bags. You can quite often rejuvenate it doing this. Right, I've got this other compost here. Right, so this is from some peat-free compost from a bag that I've got this year, just general purpose. I'm just going to tip that in there as well. Yeah, just mix this all up again, and then you get this lovely sort of light and fluffy food-based mix here for the potatoes. Now you can also, if you want to help potatoes, they do like a certain type of fertilizer. So I'm just going to put that in there and mix that in as well. It's lovely and soft, this compost now. And then we'll get the potato and we'll basically just put it in, making sure that this stalk is pointing upwards and we don't snap it off.
I wrote a song when I had nothing to say, like this one. This one. Follow the river to the edge of the sea. I kissed the water and it made me complete, like this one. This one. We experience.
So don't forget to put your label into your pot so you know what you've got. I'll do the rest of those in the next few days. Right, so that hack was how to rejuvenate the soil and how to ensure that you get a nice sort of early crop of potatoes. Apart from obviously planting them now nice and early, if you can grow them in a polytunnel or in a greenhouse, that'll help protect them sort of from the cold and frost and things, and you'll get a crop of potatoes just a few weeks earlier. Right, let's get on with the next hack, shall we? Right, the next hack is designed to save you compost, i.e. so you don't have to purchase so much every year, and also give you more crops based on the amount of space that you have. And basically what it is that certain crops really like being grown together in the same cell, and this is called multi-sowing. And so what I'm going to show you is basically a way of doing that now, and we're going to plant out some of the beetroot and some of the onions. So as I mentioned in my last video, it's really good when you're sowing seeds to start with a fairly moist compost. You know, it doesn't want to be dry. You should check that video out if you haven't seen it already. But yeah, basically fill up the cells with compost and press them down just to firm the compost in. And then what I do is just put another little layer on top. And then using a dibber or something similar, like this one I've got here, just make a hole in the middle of each cell of the compost. So let's start with these tomatoes, what am I about? Let's start with these onions. Now these onions are F1 Kamal. Never tried growing them before, really looking forward to these, but I do find that red onions grow much better and are less likely to go to seed if they're grown from seed as opposed to sets, which are baby onions. And then what I do is I just get 2 or 3 of them and drop them into each hole. And there we go. And then these seeds can just go back in here for the moment. Yeah, and then basically you want to cover them over, water them in just to get them settled in. And then this multi-sowing technique will mean that you get about 3 or 4 onions all growing in one group, and they'll just grow off each other, like 3 of them. And one will get particularly big, so you'll have that one out first, and then you'll have the other 2, and then you can take them. But yeah, that's a really good way of saving space, saving compost, and getting more crops in a small amount of space. So that's multi-sowing. Right, I've got another hack for you here, and this one is to do with watering. If you're a newbie, quite often what you see is you see people with a watering can or a hose, and they're just watering all over the top of everything, and it's really not the way to go. I want to show you a really quick hack, and this is how to water your seedlings properly. So tell me if you do this one, okay, because I bet not a lot of people do. So you'll notice actually that these seeds I watered from the top, and so initially I will do this when I've just put them in, and that is to make sure that the compost beds down onto the seeds and there's plenty of moisture in there. But once the seeds have started to germinate and you've got little seedlings coming up, you don't really want to be watering liberally all over the top. A, it can damage them because water droplets can be quite big and heavy. B, the top can get very moist and it can cause damping off, which is where the stem rots, where it joins the level of the soil and the seedlings collapse. So it's much better to do this technique actually. So if you imagine this tray was full of little seedlings that just come up, the thing to do is to get yourself a tray like this, which is full of water, just about 1 inch or so deep, and then you would basically put your tray into this tray of water, and what will happen is the water, the weight of it, the compost obviously would weigh it down, and the water comes in very gently through the bottom, and that's what you want. So basically the water will come up through the bottom and filter into the compost and the soil, and basically you'll see when the top of the compost becomes moist, you know it's time to take it out. So that's how to water your little seedlings. Okay, right, that's that hack done. Let's find out what the next one is. This one will save you compost and save you time. So let's have a quick look down here at what we've got going on. And so the idea is that you can sow some seeds in bulk and then prick them out later on, or you can just separate them and plant them straight out onto the allotment. And one of those crops is leek, and these are the ones I'm growing this year. These are musselba, and actually I've got some which I've harvested. They're really nice leeks. So basically take them out. They're just like onion seeds. Rather than taking 2 or 3 and putting them into each cell tray and doing each one and lots of different trays, you can basically just get them and liberally sprinkle them over the surface. It doesn't really matter where they come up, and they can be quite densely sort of sown as it goes. So that's all of them in there. So then basically all you do now is you get a little bit of compost, very little light sprinkling, and just sprinkle over the top. Don't have to be particularly gentle with leeks. They're quite a tough seed and quite a tough plant. And then get some water. Just want to water them in. These can go somewhere to germinate and grow up. That's a way of saving compost, saving time, and making it really quite easy when it comes to planting out. Okay, this last and final hack is one which will help your bigger seeds and certain seeds just grow better, healthier and stronger. Things like peas and broad beans and sweet peas and things. And by growing these in certain conditions, you'll get bigger and better roots and a nice strong plant. So let's have a look at what we're doing down here. Here's one I prepared earlier. I love saying that. These are deep cell trays, and these are provided by a company called Containerwise. I'm not sponsored or anything by them. I've purchased these, but they're lovely and deep. And the benefit of having this for these types of seeds is that they like to get their roots down. These are Ingrid and a dwarf. So what I'm going to do, just going to slide a few out. This technique will mean that you get nice big healthy roots on your broad beans. If you grow in little tiny cells, basically you'd need to repot them pretty quick. But because these are really deep, they can stay in here quite a while and mature, and when they're quite a good size, then they can go outside. Okay, right, so that is how to plant sort of certain seeds that need deep root containers, and in this case particular it's broad beans, but I will also be putting my sweet peas in there that I showed you earlier. If you've got any of your own hacks and tips for people to do with seed sowing and so on, do let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know them, and obviously then we can share the knowledge about. Thanks for watching. It's been Chris at Veggie Plot, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.